It was brought to my attention I made some mistakes in my coverage of the case of Brittany Phillips. My apologies, and I would like to give a more accurate version of the case. The summer of 2004 marked a return to familiar ground for an 18-year-old woman. Born and raised in Tulsa, Oklahoma, she briefly ventured away to attend college, but the pull of home, of friends and family, proved stronger. It was a decision welcomed by those closest to her, a return to the fold that promised renewed closeness and shared moments. But that decision, that homecoming, unwittingly placed this young woman in the path of a predator. Over 20 years have passed since her life was violently cut short, yet her killer remains unidentified. The case, as cold as that autumn in 2004, continues to haunt her loved ones, her mother foremost among them, who tirelessly seeks the justice her daughter was denied. This is the story of Brittany Phillips. Brittany Phillips entered the world on October 4th, 1985, in St. Petersburg, Florida. She was the second child of Dr. Maggie Zingman, arriving just 15 months after her older brother, Josh. Brittany's early childhood was shaped by her mother, Maggie. Her parents divorced when Brittany was young, and Maggie became the primary caregiver, raising both Brittany and Josh. The family's journey took them briefly to Kentucky before they settled in Oklahoma in 1991, which would become their permanent home. The bond between Brittany and Josh was strong, yet marked by the typical sibling rivalry. Maggie described it as a spirited competition, fueled by their close ages and shared experiences. They were always in the same grade, experiencing life's milestones together. From a young age, Brittany displayed a natural flair for the camera, showing interest in modeling and acting. Despite being shorter than average, a trait she jokingly blamed on her mother's genes, she possessed a striking presence and an innate ability to pose. Brittany's academic gifts became increasingly apparent as she progressed through school, culminating in her time at Union High School in Tulsa. Her intelligence and dedication earned her a full scholarship to Eckerd College in St. Petersburg, Florida, her mother's alma mater. Yet, according to Maggie, Brittany never saw herself as exceptionally bright. She attributed her success to diligent study habits, often deflecting praise and highlighting the intelligence of others. Despite her beauty, intelligence, and achievements, Brittany wasn't part of the popular crowd in high school. Instead, she was known for her universal friendliness. A former classmate recalled her as someone who, while not a close friend, always acknowledged and greeted everyone. This quality, this ability to connect with people from all walks of life, was something her mother only fully realized years later. Brittany graduated from Union High School in May 2003 at the age of 17. Even at this young age, she had a clear vision for her future. Inspired by the loss of grandmother to cancer, she set her sights on a career in chemistry, with a specific focus on cancer research and the hope of one day contributing to a cure. That summer, in August 2003, Brittany embarked on her college journey at Eckerd College in St. Petersburg, Florida, on a full chemistry scholarship. However, the distance from her support system soon took its toll. Homesickness set in, leading her to reconsider her academic path. By May 2004, nearing the end of her freshman year, Brittany made the decision to return to Tulsa, Oklahoma. While her mother lived about an hour away in Chandler, where she worked, Brittany was drawn back to the familiar embrace of friends and family in Tulsa, including her brother, Josh, with whom she developed a particularly close bond during this time. At 18, Brittany resumed her life in Tulsa, residing in the Glen Eagles Apartments, a quiet complex near her former high school. This was her first experience living alone, a significant step for someone so young. She enrolled at Tulsa Community College, continuing her pre-med studies with the goal of earning an associate's degree before making further educational commitments. In September 2004, Brittany settled into a routine of classes and time with friends. However, on Monday, September 27, 2004, she contacted her mother, complaining of seasonal allergies. She was having trouble scheduling a doctor's appointment, and that evening, around 9 p.m., she called Maggie for assistance. During that call, Maggie promised to arrange an appointment for Friday. Brittany mentioned she was about to drive a classmate who lived near East 51st Street and South Memorial Drive home before returning to her apartment for the night. The last words exchanged between mother and daughter were simple, yet profound, "I love you." The following days were marked by an unsettling silence. Brittany missed her classes, raising concern among her friends. Maggie, living an hour away, was unable to reach her daughter, her voicemails going unanswered. In the early morning hours of Friday, October 1st, 2004, Dr. Maggie Zingman's world was shattered. A sheriff's deputy arrived at her door in Chandler, Oklahoma, the rain mirroring the devastation he was about to deliver. The deputy's words, "You need to call Tulsa. Your daughter's been murdered," plunged Maggie into a parent's worst nightmare. Her 18-year-old daughter, Brittany, had been found in her apartment, the victim of rape and murder. Her body had been there for several days, discovered only after worried friends requested a welfare check. Maggie immediately drove to Tulsa, but by the time she arrived, Brittany's body had been removed. She was denied the chance to say a final goodbye. Brittany's funeral, held on October 4th, 2004, which would have been her 19th birthday, was a somber gathering. Friends and family remembered Brittany's intelligence, humor, beauty, and kindness. But for Maggie, the service was overshadowed by the haunting question of her daughter's final moments, the agonizing reality that her daughter had been killed just hours after their last conversation. The police investigation revealed the grim details of Brittany's death. Her body was found on the floor of her apartment bedroom on the evening of Thursday, September 30th, 2004. The scene suggested a violent struggle. Brittany's body was found in the opposite direction of her pillows and blankets. There were signs that the apartment had been ransacked. Investigators believed Brittany had fought back against her attacker. The official cause of death was strangulation. The condition of Brittany's remains meant her loved ones were unable to see her body. Crucially, DNA evidence was recovered from the crime scene, believed to belong to the killer. The DNA from two separate samples came from the same individual, someone with no prior connection to Brittany. At the time, technological limitations hindered the investigation. Initial database searches yielded no matches. But this DNA would become a focal point of the investigation in later years. The mystery of how the killer entered Brittany's apartment deepened the complexity of the case. There were no signs of forced entry on either the front or back doors, the latter leading to a second-story balcony. While the possibility of an unlocked door or a climb onto the balcony couldn't be ruled out, they seemed unlikely. Similarly, the windows showed no signs of being forced open. However, investigators discovered that a window screen had been removed, presenting another possible entry point. Yet, police considered this might have been a staged element. The most plausible and unsettling theory involved the shared attic. Brittany's apartment building had a communal attic space, accessible through the closets of all 8 units. This meant that anyone from those apartments could have potentially entered a neighboring unit through the attic. Investigators confirmed that a man could easily fit through the closet opening, making this a feasible entry point for the killer. The timeline of the murder remains unclear. Police believe the killer may have entered the apartment before Brittany returned home on the evening of Monday, September 27, 2004. The attack likely occurred between 9 p.m. that night and 8 a.m. the following morning, September 28, 2004. Tulsa police developed a profile of the potential killer. He may be active or alone at night. He may have sexual problems. He may engage in high-risk behaviors. He may have anger management and self-worth issues. He may or may not have a prior arrest record for rape, but possibly for lesser charges like endangering or public indecency. He may live outside the Tulsa area and may have traveled around the time of the murder, exhibiting behavioral changes upon his return. He may have been outgoing, but became withdrawn after the murder. He may have a history of attempted suicide. He may travel along major highways like I-35, I-44, or I-40. He may have had a job with access to customer addresses. This profile, while providing a framework, did not lead to any immediate breakthroughs. In the aftermath of Brittany's death, Dr. Maggie Zingman found herself adrift, grappling with grief and the lack of answers. Dissatisfied with the stalled investigation, she embarked on a mission to keep her daughter's case alive. Maggie transformed her vehicle into a mobile billboard, adorned with photos of Brittany, crime scene information, a suspect sketch derived from DNA analysis, and contact details for a tip line and website. Her brightly colored caravan to catch a killer became her mode of transportation as she traveled the country, speaking to media outlets, organizations, and anyone who would listen. The journey has been emotionally and financially draining, forcing Maggie to relive her darkest days and deplete her savings. Yet, she remains committed, driven by the hope of finding justice for Brittany and keeping her daughter's memory alive. Maggie's activism extends beyond her daughter's case. She has become a vocal advocate for DNA reform, pushing for mandatory DNA collection upon arrest, a law not universally implemented. Her efforts contributed to the passage of such a law in Oklahoma in 2016, but the state has been slow to allocate funding for its enforcement. In 2007, 3 years into the investigation, police released a new piece of evidence, a light purple pillowcase found at the crime scene that did not belong to Brittany. They believed the killer brought it with him, perhaps intending to use it to steal some of Brittany's belongings. Detective Jeff Felton explained the initial withholding of this information, stating that they feared the killer might discard similar linens. By 2007, they believed the risk had passed and hoped the detail might jog someone's memory. Years passed with no arrests. In 2013, as the 10th anniversary of the murder approached, police reaffirmed their commitment to the case, now handled by the Cold Case Unit. Maggie's caravan to catch a killer had garnered national attention, keeping the case in the public eye. In 2014, police announced a new person of interest who matched the original suspect profile, but had no known connection to Brittany. They sought to obtain a DNA sample from this individual, but the lead seemingly went cold. A significant breakthrough occurred more recently with advancements in DNA technology. The DNA evidence from the crime scene, which had yielded no matches in traditional databases, was submitted to Parabon Nanolabs. Parabon, a DNA analysis company known for its work on high-profile cold cases like the Golden State Killer, used the DNA sample to create a snapshot of the potential killer. This snapshot provided a composite image, predicting the killer's ancestry, genetic traits, and likely physical appearance. The snapshot depicted a white male of Northern European descent, with dark blonde or brown hair and blue or green eyes. The image showed what he might have looked like at age 25. The snapshot did not resemble anyone known to Brittany, but Maggie noted that he was the type of young man Brittany would have found attractive. This led to speculation that Brittany might have had a secret relationship with him. However, police maintain that they have collected DNA samples from virtually every young man connected to Brittany, including ex-boyfriends, friends, neighbors, and classmates. Over 3,000 individuals and none matched. This suggests the killer was either unknown to Brittany or someone she kept secret. The snapshot provided investigators with a new avenue of investigation and renewed media attention on the case. It also gave Maggie a new tool in her fight for justice. Before concluding, it's important to address a critical issue: Oklahoma's handling of DNA evidence, particularly in sexual assault cases. For years, Oklahoma has struggled with a backlog of untested rape kits, some dating back decades. This means that in numerous cases, DNA evidence was collected from sexual assault survivors but never analyzed. Shockingly, Oklahoma law does not mandate the testing or even the preservation of these kits. The Tulsa Police Department, the agency investigating Brittany's murder, discovered approximately 3,000 untested rape kits from the early 1990s in 2017. A federal grant in 2018 provided funding to test some of these kits, but due to Oklahoma's 12-year statute of limitations on rape and forced sodomy, older cases potentially connected to Brittany's were not prioritized. This issue is not unique to Oklahoma. Many states face challenges in funding forensic labs and adequately investigating sexual crimes. It's possible the person who attacked Brittany had assaulted others, either before or after, and may have gone undetected due to these systemic failures. In the years since the snapshot was released, law enforcement has increasingly relied on DNA databases like GEDmatch and Family Tree DNA to identify suspects in cold cases. These services have been instrumental in solving numerous high-profile crimes, offering hope that Brittany's case might also be resolved through this technology. Detective Eddie Majors is currently overseeing the investigation. Dr. Maggie Zingman continues to be a driving force, running her website and traveling the country in her caravan to catch a killer. Brittany Phillips is remembered as a beautiful, kind, compassionate, intelligent, and wise young woman. Her case is featured in the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation's Unsolved murder playing cards, distributed to inmates across the state. The DNA evidence holds the key to unlocking the truth, and there is hope that a break in the case is near. Anyone with information is urged to contact the Tulsa Police Department. The hope for justice for Brittany and for her family remains alive. "23-year-old Dale Dinwiddie was looking forward to a U2 concert at Williams-Brice Stadium, home of the University of South Carolina Gamecocks. Dale had been invited by a group of friends. The concert took place on Wednesday, September 23, 1992, and would sadly be the last concert Dale would ever attend. After the show, Dale and her friends went to the Five Points area of Columbia, South Carolina, stopping at Jungle Jim's, a bar popular with USC students. Sometime after midnight, Dale found herself separated from her friends. When they couldn't find her, they assumed she had gone home. Searching for her group, Dale left the bar. The bouncer was the last person to see her, noting that she was heading north towards a nearby intersection. The next morning, her parents discovered that she hadn't come home, and after calling everyone they could think of, they filed a missing persons report. Over the next 32 years, investigators, family, and reporters alike have been baffled by the utter lack of evidence. Police didn't even have a crime scene, and, for the most part, were searching in the dark. What happened to Dale Dinwiddie? Did she fall victim to a random act of violence? Could a serial killer have been targeting her? Or is it possible that someone she knew and trusted holds the answers? Dale Boxley Dinwiddie was born on April 12, 1969, to parents Dan and Jean. Dale was their first child, with a son named Drew coming 7 years later, in 1976. Dale was a sweet and caring child whom her parents adored. As their only child for a time, Dale received a great deal of attention and was raised in a very loving and comforting environment. When Dale was quite young, her parents had a home built in the Forest Hills neighborhood of Columbia, South Carolina, where they would raise their children. Columbia is the capital of South Carolina and the state's second largest city, with a population of more than 130,000 residents and 135 square miles. The historic Forest Hills neighborhood is known as a nice area, situated slightly to the east of Columbia proper. Columbia itself exists in an area of the state known as the Midlands, located halfway between the Lowcountry and the Upstate. The Forest Hills neighborhood is somewhat of a Midland itself, tucked between wealthy areas of town and blue-collar neighborhoods, with a Greenville News article describing it as straddling the line between affluence of forest acres and the poverty on the other side. Forest Hills is a beautiful area and, to some, a perfect place to raise a family. By the time Dale's younger brother came along, the 7-year-old had developed into a bright and driven child with a gleaming spark of personality. In an article written by Tracy Glantz, Dale is described as feisty and upbeat. In most places, Dale is described as smart, focused, and compassionate. Dale was quiet and introspective, but also fun and excitable. A former teacher described her as the type of person people wanted to be around, noting her charisma and charm. Dale's personality was bigger than her body, with the young woman growing to stand at only 5 feet tall. But if she had something to share, she certainly learned to speak up and get the attention she needed, despite her small frame. At the same time, there were those who would describe Dale as timid. Her former English teacher, Jim Gasquet, spoke about a school trip to England, during which many of the students were eager to go off exploring on their own, but not Dale. Gasquet told the Greenville News, "She was the type of student who was reluctant to launch out in the city without me." Dale attended Heathwood Hall Episcopal School, which is described on its official website as having an abiding commitment to building strong relationships between students and teachers, allows us to meet each child where they are in their educational and developmental journey. The school itself, located in the 3000 block of Beltline Boulevard, sits on a beautiful plot of land, the campus marked by lush greenery. While it might look beautiful, for Dale, it could all be a little challenging. Dale suffered from asthma and severe allergies, so much so that she required an inhaler in addition to injections twice a week. Despite the drawbacks of those allergies, Dale didn't seem interested in allowing them to stunt her development or her interests. She had always been drawn to horses, and before she had even reached the age of 10, she convinced her mother to give horseback riding a try. This would develop into a bond they shared, going on to ride together frequently and for many years. Dale rode a horse named Double Time, which she kept until her graduation from high school. According to the Greenville News, Double Time was sold in order to help pay for Dale's tuition. Initially, Dale intended to matriculate at the University of Georgia with an interest in art, but she quickly found her allergies worsened in the area, and so she shifted gears, and in the fall of 1987, went to college at Randolph-Macon Women's College, located in Virginia. The campus went co-ed in 2006, despite the protests of students and alumni alike. Dale had always shown an interest in art, and so her time at Randolph was spent pursuing a degree in art history. In the spring of 1991, Dale achieved her goals, earning her degree, at which time she returned home to Columbia, beginning her adult life looking for jobs in art restoration. Unfortunately, it wasn't a great time for new job seekers, with the economy being flat. In hopes of expanding her opportunities, Dale moved to Charlotte and eventually found a job, though not doing exactly what she'd intended. Unfortunately, this job lasted less than half a year before the business went under, and Dale returned to Columbia, moving back into the family home in the winter of 1992, a few months before her 23rd birthday. Dale was close with her family, who supported her throughout her attempts to find her footing in her career. Dale's brother, Drew, described his relationship with his older sister as developing more the older he got. When Drew came along, Dale was 7 years old, and so, in his own words, the two weren't super tight, but as he grew older, he found himself able to relate and connect to her, as well as her friends, which seemed to open the door up to a closer relationship. Until that time, though, Drew referred to himself as the annoying little brother. "I grew up with a brother 6.5 years older than me, and I can certainly attest to my abilities as the annoying little brother. I think I still hold that title." Sadly, the development of the relationship between Dale and Drew would be severed by her mysterious disappearance. After moving back home, Dale picked up odd jobs, mostly babysitting, while at the same time volunteering at the Columbia Museum of Art. As it would turn out, Dale's job as a babysitter would put her in direct contact with a woman who would later play a vital role in helping to bring attention to her case. Kathleen Parker is a columnist for the Washington Post, and Dale would, for a time, babysit Parker's eldest son. Ultimately, Dale had bigger dreams, and much of her work during this time was in preparation for her entrance in a graduate school at the University of South Carolina. According to friends and family, Dale hoped that by the time she finished graduate school, the job market may have improved. Sadly, Dale would never get the ability to fully explore those possibilities, as she would vanish before completing graduate school, just 7 months after returning for Charlotte. In September of 1992, Dale was excited when a friend invited her to attend a concert, along with a dozen others. The show, scheduled to take place on Wednesday, September 23rd, will be held at Williams-Brice Stadium, the home stadium for the South Carolina Gamecocks. On this particular night, however, there would not be a football game. Instead, the popular band U2 were coming to town as part of their Zoo TV tour, following the release of their 1991 album Achtung Baby, which had produced such memorable hits as Mysterious Ways and One. I should note, I keep seeing this tour referred to as Zootopia, but according to U2's official website, they've never had a tour with that name. According to their site, on September 23rd, 1992, They were in Columbia, South Carolina, performing on the outside broadcast leg of their Zoo TV tour. Dale was looking forward to the show, which she was set to attend along with all of her friends. The 5-foot-tall, 96-pound, 23-year-old still maintained the aforementioned trait of preferring to be around others when making an outing for the evening. So with so many friends going along, it seemed like the perfect scenario. As a student at USC, Dale was familiar with the stadium, and no one could possibly have imagined she wouldn't return home. The concert was a major event at the time, with tickets selling out, and many who couldn't attend the show choosing to gather around outside, partying together and listening to the echo of the music. The show opened with a performance by Big Audio Dynamite, followed by Public Enemy, before U2 themselves took to the stage. Attendance that evening was listed at 28,305, and U2 performed 20 songs, followed by a 4-song encore, ending the evening with the powerful Can't Help Falling in Love. According to multiple articles in Dale's listing on the Charlie Project, the show ended at approximately 11:15 p.m. However, for Dale and her friends, the night was still young, and they had plans to enjoy themselves a little bit longer. After the show, Dale and her friends traveled approximately 2.5 miles to the northeast of the stadium, proceeding into the Five Points area. Five Points is known as a mecca for stores, restaurants, bars, and nightclubs. Five Points is hugely popular with students at USC, due in part to its proximity to campus, and also the easy availability of alcohol and people looking to have a good time. While this area frequently drew a large number of college-age partiers, it was also an area noted for not exactly being the safest part of town. Located at 724 Hardin Street, Jungle Jim's was a bar and club popular with locals. While many college students went on to other bars in the area, the ones more popular with the college crowd, Jungle Jim's was sort of a local secret. While it drew in crowds of all kinds, there was more of a laid-back and relaxed atmosphere at Jungle Jim's. Over the course of the next few hours, Dale and her group of friends are in the bar, drinking, talking, and having a good time. As the hours slowly ticked by, members of their party began drifting apart, making their ways home. At some point that night, Dale ended up separated from her friends and soon found herself alone in the bar. While her friends had looked for her, they'd failed to find her, and so, at approximately 1:00 a.m. on Thursday, September 24th, the final group of them came to the conclusion that Dale had either caught a ride home with someone or called her parents to come and get her. So they left the bar, heading back to their respective homes and dorms. Reportedly, it wasn't uncommon for Dale to call her parents for a ride when needed, even late at night. According to the Greenville News, it would take a while, but walking home from that area wasn't out of the question for Dale either, at least in terms of distance. This path, however, would take her through several areas that were less than safe. It was around this time that Dale was engrossed in trying to locate her friends, and whether by poor luck or due to some other reason, she'd managed to miss them before they went on their ways. Shortly after her friends left, Dale approached the bar's bouncer and asked if he'd seen the group she'd come in with. The bouncer explained to Dale that he hadn't seen the group she was looking for, and so he watched as she walked out of the bar, heading down the road to look around and see if she could find them. Unable to locate the group, Dale returned to the bar, speaking once again with the bouncer before heading back inside to make one final sweep, hoping to find at least one of her friends still inside. But it was to no avail. Finally, at approximately 1:15 a.m., Dale exited the bar for the final time and exchanged a few small words with the bouncer. While notations about this time vary, all are approximate, and it's believed that the last sighting of Dale took place between 1:15 and 1:30 a.m. The bouncer, the last man to see the young woman, reported that she exited Jungle Jim's and then proceeded north on Hardin Street, last being seen at the intersection of Hardin Street and Green Street. This intersection is just 1 block north of Jungle Jim's. Mysteriously, Dale Dinwiddie seemed to vanish into the city in the early morning hours and has never been seen again. The morning after Dale's disappearance, her parents, Dan and Jean Dinwiddie, realized that their daughter had not come home. After making calls to everyone they could think of who might have information about Dale's whereabouts, they contacted the Columbia Police Department and filed a missing persons report. From that moment on, the Dinwiddie family would be thrust into a living nightmare, not knowing what had happened to their beloved daughter and clinging to the hope that she would one day be found. The initial investigation into Dale's disappearance yielded few clues. The police had no crime scene to investigate, and there was a frustrating lack of physical evidence. This absence of evidence made it incredibly difficult for investigators to determine the course of events that led to Dale's disappearance. It was as if she had simply vanished in a thin air. In the years that followed, the investigation into Dale Dinwiddie's disappearance has explored numerous leads and theories, but none have provided a conclusive answer. The case has been marked by dead ends, frustrating setbacks, and the persistent question of what could have happened to Dale. One of the primary theories considered by investigators is that Dale was the victim of a random abduction and attack by an unknown assailant. This theory suggests that Dale, while walking alone in the early morning hours, was approached by someone she didn't know, who then forced her into a vehicle and took her to another location where she was murdered. The lack of a body or any evidence to support this theory makes it difficult to confirm, but it remains a possibility, given that 5 Points was known to be a dangerous area at the time. Another theory is that Dale was abducted and murdered by someone she knew. This theory proposes that Dale may have left jungle gyms with someone she trusted, only to be betrayed and killed. This could explain why no one reported seeing her leave with a stranger. It also aligns with the fact that her purse was found at the bar, suggesting she may have left without intending to be gone for long. However, this theory also presents challenges. If Dale knew her attacker, it is puzzling that no one has come forward with information about who that person might be. The possibility of a serial killer being involved has also been investigated. As mentioned earlier, Reynaldo Rivera was considered a potential suspect in Dale's disappearance. Rivera was known to abduct and murder women, and he was in Columbia, South Carolina, at the time Dale vanished. However, no evidence has ever been found to link Rivera to Dale, and he maintained his innocence in her case. While Rivera remains a possibility, other serial killers who may have been operating in the area at the time have also been considered. Other theories explored by investigators include the possibility that Dale died of natural causes or was involved in an accident. This theory suggests that Dale may have become ill or injured while walking home from the bar. She may have collapsed and died, or she may have been struck by a car. This theory is supported by the fact that Dale suffered from asthma and severe allergies. However, it does not explain why her body has never been found. The theory that Dale ran away from her life has also been examined. Dale was having trouble finding a job and was living with her parents, which might suggest she was seeking a fresh start. However, this theory is not supported by Dale's personality. She was described as being close to her family and friends, and it's unlikely that she would have left without telling them. The bouncer at Jungle Gyms was also investigated. He was the last known person to see Dale alive. Investigators explored the possibility that the bouncer may have offered Dale a ride home and then harmed her. However, the bouncer cooperated fully with the investigation, and no evidence has ever suggested his involvement in Dale's disappearance. In the years since Dale Dinwiddie disappeared, her case has remained unsolved. The lack of evidence and the mysterious nature of her disappearance have made it difficult for investigators to determine what happened to her. While the theories listed above are all possibilities, none of them have been proven. The Dinwiddie family has never given up hope that Dale will be found. They have worked tirelessly to keep her case in the public eye, cooperating with law enforcement and advocating for continued investigation. They have participated in numerous media interviews, organized events to raise awareness, and maintained contact with investigators, all in the hope of finding answers. The case has also been featured on true crime podcasts and online platforms, which have helped to bring renewed attention to Dale's disappearance. These platforms provide a space for in-depth analysis, discussion, and information sharing, often reaching a wide audience and generating new leads. The Columbia Police Department has reiterated its commitment to solving Dale Dinwiddie's case, emphasizing that it remains an active investigation. They urge anyone with information, no matter how insignificant it may seem, to come forward and share it with them.